So if you want to see it, you will need to get slightly closer to either of the two screens, but in good time, and if you don't want to move, that's fine. The background of Apsmart is Shazam. So the company was founded by a gentleman called Rahul Powar, who was one of the early team at Shazam, I think sort of number 4 or number 5 at Shazam, and he was the gentleman who programmed their iPhone application. So they'd done IVR for a number of years. The iPhone came out, Shazam came out on the same day. It was App 101 when it first launched, and of course the rest is kind of 200 million installs and so on. So Rahul set up Apsmart, which is where I work now, and Apsmart is, we're a company that do things with mobile phones and tablets. We're not specific to any particular vertical, so we don't always work in music. We do quite a lot of stuff in music, that's because that's our history. But we also do things for financial services. We've done some things for sort of comics. We've done applications for building on top of Foursquare and building location-aware services. So we do all sorts of bits and pieces. We don't really do any marketing. We don't do any sort of fart apps. We don't really do games because that's a different sort of skill. But we tend to only do things that we think are engineeringly interesting, because that's why we bother getting up and getting out of bed and doing this sort of stuff. So that's Apsmart. And I'll show you one of the things that we built a couple of years ago, just to give you some kind of sense of the kind of music-y things we build. Best just to show you basically it turns an iPhone or iPhones into native MIDI controllers, if that means anything to you.
Hi, I'm Adam from AirJ, and we've got a new iPhone application, and what it does is it converts your movements into MIDI over a Wi-Fi network. So I'll do a little quick demonstration for you and show you what that actually means and what you can do with it. So say you want to play some instruments, you might want to play some percussion. Maybe some drums, So you can map different gestures to different sounds. Because this is all MIDI, it's totally configurable. So maybe you want a kick drum here, snare here, hi-hats here, floor tom, you put a beat. And there are other things you can do. Say you want to play like an air piano, Using the gyroscopes and the accelerometers, so like you play air guitar.
So anyway, you get the picture. It turns any number of iPhones on the same Wi-Fi network into MIDI controllers, and then you can map the MIDI signals to whatever you want. So you can map it to instruments, you can map it to lighting, you can map it to sound effects, you can do whatever you like with it, basically. And that was Adam, who we worked with on it, and he's a DJ, but his thing about DJing is it tends to be lots of people looking at someone hunched behind a laptop, and he wanted to turn it into something that was a little more sort of performance-based. That's out now. I don't know how much it is, but you can have a look if you like. So we do those sorts of things. We try to do things that are slightly different. And something that we've just built is this thing called MPme, which I'm going to talk about a little bit now. As was said, it did quite well at midem. We haven't spent a lot of time marketing it, so we haven't been out there, trying to get it into blogs and magazines and all that sort of thing. We went to midem because obviously it's an industry conference and we're interested in what the industry has to say about it. Similarly, that's why we're here, because we're interested in what people here think about it. So if you have an opportunity to download it, it's an iPad application, have a play, there is a feedback button, get in touch with us, tell us what you like, what you don't like, and so on, because we want to make it as good as possible before we unleash it onto the world proper. So the reason for MPme, obviously there's a vast amount of music that's available to you any time of day. There's huge catalogues of music, and the resultant effect of that, to begin with, and broadly is still the case, is this. It's a vast amount of choice. To find what you want becomes quite hard work. Obviously, there are a number of services that try to help you with this with varying degrees of success, but for us, this is the, well, if you look at something like Spotify, for example, they release a huge amount of music every single day. I think at the last, they had 12 million tracks in the catalogue. They're releasing 14,000 new tracks a day. If you take an average of 3 minutes per track, that's about 700 hours a day, or 29 days worth of new music every single day. So that's an enormous amount of new music coming out. Not all of it is going to appeal to you, but some of it is bound to, and the question is, how do you find it? And that's why we like the radio. We like, when I'm talking about radio, I'm talking about broadcast radio, linear broadcast radio. And we like linear broadcast radio because there are people whose jobs it is to choose the pieces of music to play to you. And they're able to make those sorts of connections that machines find very, very hard to do. So if we imagine 3 songs, and the DJ plays the second song because the lead singer in that band went out with the drummer in the band that played the first song. Quite difficult to do. And then the third song is played because it happens to be raining outside. Those kinds of connections we generally seamlessly understand. And the machines are pretty bad at doing that. The other reason we quite like radio is because of serendipity. You hear things that you don't expect to hear. You hear new tracks that are picked out at random and plugged into a playlist, and you hear, I mean, we've found that we hear more new music by listening to the radio than we do anywhere else. But what's happened with radio is what happened with the general availability of music, which is this again. So when I was growing up, I grew up on the south coast of England. There was 2 Counties Radio, Solent FM, BBC Radio 1, there's about sort of 5 or 6 stations quite close to the coast, so I suppose we could get some stuff from France, but broadly the choice was pretty limited. Now the choice is gigantic, so we're reaching the same problems, which is if we like broadcast linear radio, or linear broadcast radio, or however you want to put it, how do I find the station that I like? And we don't think this is the answer. We don't think presenting people with long lists of radio stations, it actually solves very much. Because with this piece of information, I've got the logo, which gives me some kind of idea, I've got the name, and I've got the name of the person or the name of the thing that's playing at that point in time. There's not enough contextual information for me to understand why I should want to listen to one radio station over another. So I have to go into every single one of these, have a look inside, maybe have a listen, come back out, go in, out. So, and it's not the most pleasurable experiences either. So that's why we built MPme. And we broadly wrap what MPme up in these 2 words, what it does in these 2 words, which is curated radio. And by that, what we're doing is we're listening to thousands and thousands of radio stations in real time. So we're listening to what they're playing, and we're building a catalogue of what they're playing. And we use that plus the music that you have on your device. So we look at your play count in your music library, we can look at your Facebook likes and so on and so forth. And looking at those 2 things, we can say, well, at this point in time, these radio stations may be of interest to you. And on the back of that, you can then listen to them. So, as this last point says, which you probably can't read right at the back, and whatever, provides a relevant, uninterrupted music stream curated by professional radio DJs. So essentially what MPme does is it recommends which stations to listen to and when to listen to them. So it's pretty straightforward. And here's a demo. So I'm going to talk through it. So I've opened the application, because you might not be able to see at the back. It's chosen some radio stations, but in this case I'm going to use search. I'm sorry, I've searched for No Doubt, apologies. No Doubt gets chosen, and it's gone and done a search, and it's looked through radio stations, it's found a bunch of radio stations that are all playing No Doubt at this particular point in time. And I can go and have a look at what's played before, and I can have a listen to the music. So, this fades out in a minute. So what I'm doing now is I'm scrolling through other radio stations that have been selected for me, and I can look through what that radio station has played in the past. So I can get a pretty good idea of what's going on at this particular point in time. I can go from there into follow-on experiences. So if I want to look at a particular artist, in this case Bjork, I can see the biography, I can see some photography, I can see which radio stations in the world play Bjork most frequently. I can see other blogs, I can see YouTube videos. Coming back here, what happens next? Oh, I can add stations to lists of favourites. So if there are particular stations that I happen to have found in Peru or wherever it happens to be, I can add it to a list of favourites. Or I can add artists to a list of favourites, which I can use later to find radio stations. It does quite a lot of stuff, So it's quite hard to describe everything that does in one go. This is the bit where it hooks into Facebook, so I can see all the pieces of music that my friends from Facebook like, and use that to seed this strip of radio stations. But what's really kind of most interesting about it, or what we enjoy most about it, is less really being able to find a particular band or song playing right now, because there's plenty of services that allow you to find a particular song or a band and play it on demand. What's most interesting is being able to hear when a song or an artist that you very, very rarely hear gets played somewhere else. So there's a song called Black Cab by Jens Lekman, I think is the surname. You very, very rarely hear this. But if I'm able to find a radio station that's played that reasonably recently, the stuff they're playing either side of that is probably going to be of interest to me. And so it's being able to find these kind of gems being played somewhere in the world and listen to the music that's being played around it. So we think it's an interesting experience. It's also, in terms of engineering, it requires quite a lot of heavy lifting. You can imagine having to listen to thousands and thousands of radio stations simultaneously, and collecting all that data and being able to scour all that data requires quite a bit of work. So there's a few things that we do. One thing that we do is we distribute the computational load across everybody who's listening to it. So we do a lot of the listening, but when somebody else is listening to a radio station, they're doing the monitoring for us. So in terms of scalability, lots of people talk about scale. As this scales effortlessly because it's scaling with the people who are using it. So as it grows larger, we don't necessarily take on any more load in terms of the computation that we're having to do. Another thing that we do, this is a very kind of engineering type phrase, we use the latest non-blocking technology, which essentially means we're able to search through large amounts of data and present it back to the user very, very quickly. And the final thing is we're fully implemented with iOS 5 and AirPlay. So all of this can be pushed out to AirPlay speakers, all of this can be pushed out to AirPlay TVs. So it doesn't have to be a singular experience on the iPad. User experience, it's not lists, it's nice to play with, it's nice to use, so on and so forth. And it's out now. It did all right at midem, as I said. It gets featured in various things. We're not like making a big noise, as I said, but people generally seem to like using it. A couple of other things we've just added. So the Facebook integration is starting to get a bit deeper. So we've added chat in there, so you can do one-to-one chat while you're listening to the radio with people on Facebook. But what you can also do is you can chat to people who are listening to the same radio station. And of course, the natural extension of that is all sorts of things, whether it happens to be making requests or competitions or whatever. It's wherever you want that to go. We've also included the use of more open graph. So I don't know how familiar we are with kind of active and passive sharing, but if we look at putting things on Facebook in two buckets. One is active sharing, where I've said I want to like something, I want to put something on my wall, I'm actively saying I want this to happen. The second thing that has now come into play is frictionless or passive sharing, which is as I'm listening to radio stations, it will aggregate what I've listened to over a period of time and then put that on my timeline so that other people can see the sorts of things that I'm listening to. And I think we're reasonably early on in doing this kind of stuff. A few other people are doing it, but we're reasonably early on doing it. And of course, we've updated all the assets so it all looks lovely on the new, it's not an iPad 3, but let's face it, it's an iPad 3 with a nice display. So that's MPme, as I said. If you are at all interested in this, please do have a look, do use the feedback button. You can do it in the application. You can also go onto the website and leave support queries there. But we'd really, really like to hear your feedback. And that's it.
Daniel, thanks very much. Wonderful. You're sticking around for a while?
Are you sticking around? Yes, I'm sticking around for a little bit. So
superb.